My name is Jeff St Laurent. This is the Tuesday Live Show coming at you each and every week at 12:05 Eastern. And today's topic is bursts of motivation that lead to nowhere and what to do about it. And I'll explain more about that in a second. But before we get going, I record all these Tuesday Live shows and I put them on my university on my website, sellingcoaching.com. You'll find a whole bunch of resources there as I help coaches transition to full-time business. And one of the best resources you can start off with is right on the homepage at sellingcoaching.com. And that is launching your full-time coaching business, the first 3 vital steps. You can enter your name and email address. And no, you won't get my dog, but you'll receive that audio resource instantly and have access to that. Also, right at the top of every page on sellingcoaching.com is an invitation to my private Facebook group. And we've got a lot of great interaction going on there. We're closing in on 2,000 coaches at this point, and a lot of people expressing themselves, making videos. It's great stuff. So consider joining that, or if you're not already there, and if you're there, consider participating. And then lastly, if you are a coach who wants to transition to a full-time business, but know you need some help in setting up your structure from scratch, even if you've done a few things and you're trying to pull everything together and you need marketing structure and an email marketing structure, and then defining your market and then moving forward wherever you're at in that stage, I can definitely assist you with that. If it's something where you know you need some help with that and you're considering hiring me as your mentor coach, go to sellingcoaching.com, scroll to the bottom of the Work With Me page, fill that form out, and then I'll follow up with you and we can create a relaxed conversation and go from there. With that being said, let's jump into today's topic, and that is bursts of motivation that lead to nowhere and what to do about it. And the topic came about this weekend. On Sunday, I drove down to Connecticut, and my friend, I'm in Massachusetts and he's in New Jersey, New York. So we kind of met halfway in Connecticut. And we went to college together, hanging out, and we played some pool. We played pool all the time, growing up together in college. And so just kind of like re-catching up, had some dinner afterwards. And so I'm a lightweight. I had a beer, and I probably had like this much of the top of the beer, and I'm buzzed, whatever, already. And we're playing pool, and music's going, I'm having fun, and I'm getting all these inspirations. Like, as imagine you as a human being, we all do. We get all these inspirations, and I'm thinking, oh man, I haven't played pool in a while. And I'm thinking like, oh, we should get together more, right? And I don't get to see my friends enough, right? And then there's the reality of it is like, well, we all have lives and kids, and we live far apart, and blah blah blah. And it's just not that easy to do that sometimes. Doesn't mean we can't, right? But we get a burst of motivation, and the next thing you know, I probably have this every time we get together. And next thing you know, it's 2 years, and we see each other 2 years later, right? Or you're sitting on the couch, and this happens all the time. And I've had a couple of knee surgeries in the last 2 years. I was in the fitness industry for 20 years or whatever. So since college, I've been fit and things like that. And obviously, in having knee surgeries, I haven't been as active as I've wanted to be, right? So I'm a little heavier than I want to be. And all of a sudden, I get all these bursts of motivation. I'm like, oh, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to start working out again. And then I realize I can't really work out the way I want to work out. And I'm not motivated afterwards. And next thing you know, I have these bursts of motivation that go nowhere, right? Or I do something for a little bit, and next thing you know, a week or two later, it's just like, hey, I'm just ordering out again or eating poorly again. And then there's, of course, our business, right? And there's a business. I see this all the time with coaches, and it's just like, they're fired up and they're ready to go, and maybe they end up working with me and we start moving forward from there. Or maybe they're just like, email communication, and I'm super fired up, and then maybe I follow up with them a month later or 3 months later. Hey, I noticed I came across your email again, and I know you said you were designing your website. I'd love to see how it came out. I'd love to see what you're doing. And next thing you know, it's like, I never did that, or something got in the way. And it's these bursts of motivation that lead to nowhere. The reality, though, is if we ever want to move forward, and this is about your business, but I bring in the examples of, our health, our weight, relationships, doing things, hobbies, or just anything that we want to do in our life, or especially business, it's the same for everybody, and no one who's out there right now that's successful is any different or immune to this disease of like motivation-itis, the inflammation of motivation, meaning we get this burst of motivation and then it just leads to nowhere. right? And so I want you to understand that, right? So you look at me, you look at someone else, you look at someone who's a role model out there, and they're like, oh, they're so successful, they're creating all this stuff, and it's just like, if we're all being honest about it, that's why I'm being honest with you guys about it. Like, I'm no different. I can have all this inspiration. There's so many things I want to do in my business that I'm not doing right now, right? It doesn't mean it's a bad business. I'm doing very well, but there's also this things I want to push myself on and do, and it's just like, oh, I've been wanting to do a course for a while and blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, I haven't done anything with that yet, right? It happens. But what we're going to say is if we're ever going to move forward with some of these items, but especially let's talk about business, there's a thing that you hear me, if you're a student of mine, teach all the time, which is consistency over time. It's not just consistency, but it's consistency over time. It's a huge component to this, right? And so motivation isn't going to get you there, especially if we have bursts of motivation that lead to nowhere, or bursts of motivation that fizzle out and we do a day's worth of something and we blog for a week, or we create a video, and then all of a sudden, a month later, that was the only video we created. Or maybe we're even good for a couple of weeks, right? That's not going to cut it long term. This is my 15th year as a full-time coach. And I didn't make it this far because I had bursts of motivation. There's bursts of motivation in there, but there's this flatline effect where your lows are high and your highs are low, meaning you're never too high or too low. You're just kind of just like this. And that's where I want you to be. And so when we talk about motivation, we have to realize that motivation is like spray paint on rust. It doesn't stick, in other words. Motivation isn't the thing that's going to get you long-term anything. Motivation might get you fired up and inspired right now or today in the moment. Motivation's not bad. It can't hurt to be motivated. It's just what I want you to do is within that motivation, let's see how we can use that as a burst of fuel to get into kind of why we're doing what we're doing, to get into the discipline, to get into the plan, to get into the structure. And I start to use those words, the plan, the structure. And even at the beginning of this show, I said, I'm like, hey, if you know you need some help with this stuff, consider hiring me as your mentor coach, right? And I said some of the things that I do, and I use those words, structure of marketing, structure of emails, like creating a plan, so because you need to know what you need to do on a daily, weekly basis. Not only so that you do them, but you also know when you do them, and then also when you're done with them, so you can get out of your office. I just got off the phone with my mentor coaching client, and one of the things we talked about is like the structure of the day, and when you show up, when do you leave? You got to know when you show up. You also got to know what you're doing in the middle. You also got to know when you're going to leave, because even though this is full time, even though you love it, and even though you got to work and do that, you're not getting paid for time. We get paid for results as an entrepreneur. So more time doesn't equate more money. It just means more time that if you're done, you're done. Spend it somewhere else, enjoying yourself or doing some other things, right? So the point is where we're going with this now is we've got to go back. We've got to go into that structure, that discipline. And so as opposed to the motivation and inspiration and all those bursts of energy that we have there, is I want you to start seeing the business as a disciplined act that we have this structure with, which doesn't mean we can't have fun with it. It doesn't mean we can't be excited about it. It doesn't mean we can't sprint within the business, right? And have moments of that. I've sprints a lot, but those sprints are recovered by some recovery and an understanding of the pace that I can keep over time. And so there's a certain aspect of the business that's very rote and mundane and just autopilot, and I'm doing it because I want to do it, but sometimes I have to do it. Like I'm sending my emails out, and I email on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. I can be honest and say I'm not always excited to send my email, right? I'm always not like in the mood or know what I'm doing, and I know I have to do it. What am I going to write about? I don't know. Even these Tuesday live shows, it doesn't mean I always show up, oh, it's Tuesday. I get here, once I get going, like I'm fine with it, right? But there's been times where I got a lot going on, or I'm stressed, or I'm overwhelmed. It's like, oh my God, I got to put on something other than a pajama top because I've got to be on a show. You know what I mean? I should shave, whatever. So the point is I'm not always fired up, right? But what keeps me going, whether I'm motivated or not, is the structure, is the discipline, is the rote nature of it, right? Is the schedule. I work out at 9:15 in the morning, and it doesn't matter if I want to work out or I'm motivated to work out. Like that's when I work out. Doesn't matter if I like the workout or not. But that's when I work out just as much as when I do my email on Monday. Like, it doesn't matter if I have something good or not, anything to say, or whether I'm motivated or not. Like, it's when I send my email. So I send the email, right? And so sometimes you're just going through the motions. And whether you're going through the motions excitedly or motivatedly or just blah or depressed, I don't care. What matters is you're going through the motions. And what dictates you going through the motions is the structure and the schedule. And that's it. And so what I want to paint for you today is often I like to paint the non-sexy stuff because the business isn't sexy. And especially in a business that's a passion-based, service-based business where we're helping people and we've got this coaching thing that we love and it's changed our life and that's all we want to do is coach. And then there's all this marketing stuff and the selling stuff that we try to understand and figure out. And there's a whole process we have to get to before we actually get a client. There's the stuff that wears us down and then we're human. So we have a life and maybe kids and spouses or relationships that we got to deal with. And what the hell are we doing? We don't know. We don't know what we're doing. Can we be honest? Like we have bursts of feeling like we're knowing what we're doing. And if I was 20 again, yeah, I'd know what the hell I'm doing because I've been 20 years past that. And I figured some of that stuff out. But I didn't know what I was doing at the time, Like my son thinks he knows what he's doing. He has no clue what he's doing. We do because we're not 13. We were, we get it. We lived it. We've experienced it. But where we're at right now, we don't know what we're doing in our relationships and our business. And come on, let's be honest about this. And that's okay. We figure it as we go along and we do the best we have to synthesize past experiences, other people's experiences, what we learn, what we input, and then synthesize it into thoughts, which lead to behavior, which leads to actions, which lead to whatever results we get. And if we're smart enough and calculated enough and trusting enough, we can do pretty well. Can all things considered that we really don't know what the hell we're doing, right? And so where I'm going with this now is just basically it's trying to give you permission to go down the path a step at a time. I started a group program with 6 coaches and we're doing a group mentoring program for the next 3 months, et cetera. And we had our first official call yesterday. If you're in my email community, you'll have read that or at least seen that as an example. That's why I want you to go to the homepage to sellingcoaching.com and not only get that free resource I told you about, we got to name an email, but it's also put you in my email community so you get some of this stuff. But I talked about in that email, I talked about starting that program. And one of the things I said to them in the beginning is that, you've got to trust this process, but you've also got to recognize that as your mentor and the mentor coach that I'm being for you is like, I'm like that person who's been there down the road 15 years ahead of where you're at. And I'm going to be able to see things that you can't see right now. Even if you wanted to, you can't see them. And so I just want you to trust me that when I'm pushing in a direction, you might not see the path quite yet. And my job is to help you understand it and show it to you and hopefully just paint the picture. And you might logically understand it, but you're not going to emotionally understand it and have a buy-in. Really, the only way you can is until you actually experience it yourself. But I can help you, hedge some of the fear, hedge some of the things that are going to make this path a whole lot easier because there's a certain percentage of the stuff that you've got to deal with that I don't care who you're going through it with, they can't take it away from you, right? There's a certain percentage that if you do this versus this, it's going to be a little bit better. So you do it, you still know the exact result that you want, but the curve was just less sharp, if I can say it like that, right? So you've just got to trust that process. And that's what I'm asking you to do is just begin to trust this process. And like I said, I'm starting to paint this unsexy picture of, and it doesn't have to be unsexy like it's ugly, but just unsexy, the fact that it's just like, it is what it is. And oftentimes I refer to it as the grind, and the grind has an energy around that word of like maybe, I don't know, it's a grind, like not fun, right? But I'll use that word purposely with my clients because I want to paint this picture of like, yeah, it's going to be work, and it's not always going to be, woohoo, this is fun, yay. Sometimes you get on a roller coaster and you puke afterwards and you're dizzy for the rest of the day, and it's not fun. So that's where we're going right now is starting to recognize that it's not about the burst, it's not about the motivation, it's about the mundane, flat line, every day structure. I'm showing up and I just got to do it. I've just got to go through the workout. I've just got to write the email. I've just got to make the better choice, right? And the choice is to do it. And there's going to be some times where you're going to make the poor choice and you say, screw it. I'm going to skip my workout. Screw it. I'm going to eat the crappy food. Screw it. I'm going to not do the email. I'm not going to do the live show, whatever. We are masters of rationalization. Rationalize. It's rational lies. We rationally tell ourselves these lies that we buy because we're the only one hearing them, and we go, that makes sense, and so we skip it, and then we feel like crap afterwards, and it makes that cycle worse. The great part of having a discipline, and to me, the discipline's it's an interesting word, because I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily get all pumped up and excited about the word discipline. And if I think about the energy around discipline, I actually love discipline, but I also don't necessarily get like this great positive vibe from it. So it's how about this? I can get positive and a lot of negative from it, right? So I want you to see the discipline as a neutral word of not having some highs or lows, but again, that flat line of the discipline of just show up, do it, get it done. And maybe it's the best email you've ever written to this point. Maybe it's the worst. Maybe it's just an email, but you did it. And that's the piece. And the cool part about it is when you start getting in, okay, I did the Monday email. I did my weekly event. I called the people I needed to call. I'm doing the marketing. I posted what I need to post. I got to the networking event. And you're doing it just whether you're high, you're low, you're in between, you're just doing them. It's great if you're high and you're doing them, right? It doesn't mean that never happens. But the thing is to make sure that when you're low, you're still doing them, right? That's the message here. So you're doing them. There's a certain snowball effect, if you will, that just gradually starts to build up, right? And this is what I've experienced over the years is in the beginning, you've got no snowball. You've got flakes that just a little, and it just falls apart in the second you stop, right? But the year after year after year, you've got a lot of momentum. You've got more people, right? So you have more margin for error. You have more margin for the days where you miss things or do things like that. And I'm not saying you miss things because I don't miss things now, right? You can still see me do that. But you've also got that many years of doing them. So it's easier to do the things. Whereas right now, writing the email, like one of my mentoring clients this morning, it was like they were, just the email, it takes me so long. It takes me like 2 hours to write the email. And I'm like, 2 hours? No, we just need to write the email. I'm like, we need to start setting some boundaries on that and changing your perspective on what the email needs to be and the pressures around it so it doesn't have to be this big event type of thing. So we're helping with that piece. But also the more you do it, after you've been doing it for 15 years, 3 emails a week, that adds up, And so now what happens is obviously there's a certain element of it that doing it in that lower energy state, meaning I'm not high doing it. I'm just like, I don't really want to do this right now, but I got to do it. I'm not running into that newbie wall of like, oh my God, and now it's so overwhelming because I haven't really done it or if ever or that much. And therefore I still don't really have confidence in what I'm doing. At least down the road, if you got the discipline, that shrinks. So now the snowball is bigger and now you've got the confidence. You've done it before. So it's really not that big of a deal. You can pull from stuff that you've done, morph it, shape it, and it's easier to do it in a less energetic state, if you're following what I'm saying there. And therefore, you've got the momentum of those years. It's easier to do those things, so they're not such a big deal. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. And my whole point is I really want to get you to that point of just having the discipline of doing the components and not being wide-eyed and bushy-tailed in those motivational states and fooling yourself in thinking that this burst of energy is going to turn into this magnificent result in my business or anywhere else for that matter. It's like, great, leverage it the best you can, but leverage it to create the discipline and the structure so that you can fall into that and you always fall into it or that pulls you up from the lower energetic state.